What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports Morning Show. I am your host, Mangone. I'm here with JSU, and we're going to be joined by Big T shortly. We're going to talk some draft, and then we're going to talk some showdown. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about what happened in the draft last night, a little bit of recap, and then, we're going to talk about the NBA showdown slate tonight between the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies. Should be a fun game. I'm sure Big T will have a lot of choice words for it. I'm sure JSU, you're rooting for the 4-2, so it should be a lot of fun. But let's talk about the draft, JSU. What are some of your thoughts? I mean, it was a pretty crazy one. Thought it was going to be a bit boring because of kind of the guys that were up there, a lot of linemen. We talked about it on the show on Tuesday with Bruce, just not a lot of sexy picks, no quarterbacks at the top, but a lot of trades were made. AJ Brown has changed teams. So is Marquise Brown and a lot of receivers then taken kind of in the middle there. What was some of your takeaways from watching the draft, JSU?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, especially that run on receiver that they got in the first round, where I forget if it was 6 or 7, I can't remember, in the first 20 picks. I thought that was really interesting, right? That's we're starting to see those first round receivers, and we saw that year with Justin Jefferson and all those guys coming out. Some of these guys are going to be bust, but I do like a lot of the receivers that were taken in the first round. I think Jameson Williams is going to be the steal receiver, because that dude, just every time I watched college football and saw him play, he just was always popping off. It just seemed like he was always popping for big plays. And I think he fits the Lions really well too. I think he's a perfect guy for even someone like Jared Goff, who I don't think is very good. He's at least serviceable. And I think with guys like Jameson Williams, right, just get him the ball, get him in space, and let him just do his thing. And I think Jared Goff can at least do that. So, I mean, the draft was interesting, though. We got the trades with AJ Brown. Hollywood Brown was traded too, some big receivers. Sucks that AJ Brown goes to Jalen Hurts. I mean, when you think about it, it's Ryan Tannehill, not that great of a quarterback. Let's be honest, right? But then you go to Jalen Hurts. Is it a step up? I don't think it is. I think Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback. I don't think people understand how bad Jalen Hurts is. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but at the same time, the Eagles, it's probably good for them that they got another weapon for sure. They got to try and, do as much as they can. They ran the ball a shit ton. We'll see if that changes, but yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see him with Devonta Smith and those guys, see that offense. It was interesting there. And then Lamar Jackson tweeting out, he seemed like he was not very happy about his star receiver, Mangone. I don't know if you saw those tweets, but he was not happy about his boy Hollywood. I'll just say that.
He was tweeting through the pain, and then Hollywood was tweeting back yeah, I'm with you. I wanted you to be my boy for life, but it's just not happening. So what can you do? It was definitely interesting, though. The AJ Brown thing, I'm with you. Poor Jalen Hurts, or not Jalen Hurts, poor AJ Brown. He's got to deal with Jalen Hurts. That is not the most ideal scenario. I am curious.
We say poor AJ Brown. He did get $100 million. He did get 50-something million guaranteed. He got his contract, though, right, Mangone? He got the contract. He got paid. We're saying poor AJ Brown because, I don't want to say it's a massive step down, though, from Ryan Tannehill, because it's probably not a massive step down. I do think in the intermediate passing area, Ryan Tannehill was pretty solid and accurate, and that's where you'll see Jalen Hurts is not as accurate, and that's where AJ Brown that's where he kind of has massive success, right, Mangone, in that 10 to 20 yard stretch range catches, because then he goes for big chunk runs after it, especially over the middle. That's where his, a lot of his success is. And Ryan Tannehill was pretty good at putting the ball on him in that kind of range. So I don't want to say Ryan Tannehill was a terrible quarterback. He was a good one for an AJ Brown type. Jalen Hurts, not as accurate. He's got to get a lot better in that intermediate area passing, but we'll see. Maybe he makes improvements and there's a step up. Just from what I've seen from him to date, not very good for AJ Brown.
No, yeah, I'm with you on that. I like Drake London. I think he's going to be fun to watch in the NFL, but I don't know what the Falcons are going to do with that quarterback situation. Just might be another year of waiting. So that's going to be interesting to see. Sometimes we have a boring draft, JSU, like it's okay. And the Giants, like you took 2 linemen, but that's okay. You know what I mean? Like you can take linemen and those are staples. I know you're a big fan of linemen like myself. So yeah, I think that's going to be good for them. I know I wanted the Packers to grab like a receiver, but they didn't grab one. What can you do? Kenny Pickett went to the Steelers. I thought that was interesting because the Steelers are one of those weird teams, Jace, who are like, they're like kind of like, I mean, obviously we saw they went to the playoffs with Ben Roethlisberger. Somehow his corpse brought them there. So I'm curious if you have any opinions on like the Steelers grabbing like a rookie quarterback and trying to like basically like, replicate what they did last year, make the playoffs and then kind of build from that. Do you think that's like was the best move? I mean, obviously, I think they only had like Mason Rudolph, right? I don't even know who their other quarterback was going to be. So, what do you think about the Steelers like bringing a rookie in and just trying to kind of make a run, I guess, this year?
Yeah, I think for the Steelers, right, you're just looking at like we need this position. Mason Rudolph's not the guy. They didn't pick up any, other quarterbacks or veterans, I don't think, as of now. So, you got to try and find a rookie. They probably, I don't think many people love the quarterbacks in this draft. I know it was kind of a weak draft with the quarterback position, but yeah, I don't have an issue with it just because it was a massive position of need. So we'll see if the kid can develop into anything. I don't have any strong thoughts on him as a quarterback. I just haven't watched him enough to really give a strong take on him personally. So we'll see what happens. But I don't hate it just because, again, they needed a quarterback. I did think it was really interesting how Green Bay, all these wide receivers get traded. There's like 7 or 6 dudes that go in the first like 20 picks. They get none of them, right? And then they get to their picks and they just say, screw off. they just don't go offense and they go with, defense. They get a D lineman. They get a linebacker. I don't know. Like, are they trying to trade for a guy like Debo? Maybe they're trying to make a big splash with him, but it is weird that like they're not. So
they never,
AJ Brown,
they never make a big splash. Like when has the Packers made a big splash? They just don't.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you're right. I'm just saying though, you see all these receivers going, you're like, man, you guys couldn't have moved up and got one. Like you guys couldn't have, tried your best. We'll see what happens. I guarantee you though, Aaron Rodgers, probably not the happiest person waking up this morning, seeing all those receivers go. Like all those receivers too, these are good receivers. Like the kid that Tennessee got to replace him, he looks like he could be a stud. He's like an AJ Brown type 2 almost, like 6'2", 225, 230, like big dude, big hands. Like he could be a beast. I know the kid Olave, a lot of people are high on him. The Ohio State receivers in general, I think a lot of people are high on. I know Big T was talking about Olave to me. He really liked him as a receiver. Yeah, just a lot of studs in this draft, and they couldn't get one of them too. I think the Lindenberg kid, the Ravens just sneakily always find ways to have solid drafts. I think it was honestly a steal to get that center Lindenberg, or however you say his name, at 25. Like, I think he's like a ready type guy now. You can plug him right in and he's going to give you like as long as he's not like injured or anything like that. I think he's going to have a good career, and they get him at 25. Like, they always find a way to find good like linemen and stuff like that. So Ravens, I think, were another team that had a good nice steal at 25.
Yeah, I think another thing too, like I think that what the Packers did, JSU, I think they just knew like once Dotson was off the board too and Burks, I think they just realized we're gonna wait and we'll grab a receiver in the round 2. So I think that's why they did it. But we'll see.
Again, though, you see that run on receiver. Why aren't you trying to get up? Like, get up there and get them. Like
they maybe they tried, but like they're just they don't make moves. Like they build their teams through the draft. It's just it's very frustrating. They never make a big splash. We got Sammy Watkins out there catching passes next year for probably like 3 or 4 weeks, and then he's gonna be hurt, and then we're gonna have Lazard, and like that's it. So it's gonna be
the Patriots are another team. Like, why do they draft in the first round, Mangone? Like, I think it's just silly. Like, for Belichick, the dude should always just trade back into the third and fourth and just draft all the guys that you were going to draft in the first and second round, draft them in the third round because they're still going to be there. Like the Patriots literally just need to do this. I don't know why they don't either. Like, don't just reach on guys, like move back. Just don't draft in the first round. You're not good at, first of all, they're not very good at drafting in the first round. But second of all, just like, why are you reaching for guys in the first round is another thing. Like, even if the O-line kid ends up being good, like even if he ends up being good, which he could be, like it's the Patriots. Like they did it with that safety last year. I'm sitting here going, why are they taking I think it was Duggar or whatever his name was. Like they reach for him. They do it every year in the first or second round. They reach for somebody and everyone's like, oh, who is this? And it's like, yep, it's just how the Patriots roll.
Yeah, I will say good for Seattle actually taking a lineman because like that line's been a disaster for a while. So maybe they finally realize they need to improve that. So that's another one I saw just now looking at the board. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty good by Seattle because I thought they might be dumb and go for like Malik Willis and be like the team that just like drafts a quarterback first or something. So yeah, it was definitely interesting draft overall. I'm curious to see where some of these other guys go. Like we talked about before just now, Malik Willis. I'm curious to see what team takes a shot on him in the second round. That'll be interesting to see. I know you mentioned Jameson Williams. Hopefully he's not stuck there to die in Detroit like Aiden Hutchinson. I was talking to one of my buddies. He was like, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson's done. He's just going to be stuck with the Lions forever. And I'm like, listen, you know what's going to happen? He's going to be playing a lot of defense in Detroit. He's going to get a lot of sacks and he's going to go get a bag somewhere else. And he'll be very happy. He'll be fine. His life will be
good. And I'll say this, like Detroit was not as bad as everyone thought they were going to be, including myself last year. How many close games did they lose? Like correct. That team could have easily been better, like record wise, I'm talking about. They lost a ton of close games. And I know we're talking about butts and ifs, but I'm just saying, like, they were literally in a bunch of games that they had chances to win. Who's to say that, like, they couldn't turn it around and win a couple more games, win those close games this year with some of these picks? Like, we'll see when Jameson Williams returns, but the Aiden Hutchinson kid, like, you just take those guys. I don't know. I'm not convinced that Detroit is just going to be that terrible. And the coach, to me, like, at least he wants to win. Like, he is like a fiery dude. He wants to win. His players seem like they at least play hard for him. They looked like they played hard that whole season. And they knew they weren't, like, getting there at the end of the season, but they played hard. So I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know if the Lions are going to be a place where people go to die. The culture might be slowly changing there, Mangone. They still need to find a way to get out of Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff's not going to be the answer long term, but correct. I don't know. Could they win 7 or 8 games this year? Like, if they won 7 games or 8 games this year, would you be like shocked?
Not totally. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm like hesitant to say it though, right? Like, you're definitely saying things that I've thought of, like, because when you have a team that's in the basement like that too, you do want the guy that's going to like, just like will like the really crappy players to win and like kind of just like change the culture, right? Like what you're thinking or what you're saying. So,
well, how about this? Like, look at the other teams in their division. Seriously, like Green Bay, they lost.
Green Bay will beat them most games. It's really the Bears and the Vikings. Those are like, they could go 3-1 against those teams.
They could like, this division is not as bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not as bad. You got the Packers for sure, but outside of them, like, you could reasonably be the second team in this division and not be like a stunner to people.
Yeah. And I will say they probably could maybe steal a game from the Packers. And the reason I just say it is because I think the Packers MO this year is going to be just like trying to run the ball a lot and just like doing what they like to do. And then like, if Rodgers gets behind, it might be more difficult this year for sure with that receiving core. It depends what they finish it off with. So we'll have to see. If you guys have anything in the chat, feel free to fire away on that. I know Dotson was one of the receivers. They ended up going to the Commanders. I'm blanking who it is. Who did the Commanders get at quarterback this year now, JSU? Who's their new quarterback?
It's Wentz, right?
I think didn't they do something different maybe? Oh yeah, no, it is Wentz. Yeah, sorry, I'm right. It is Wentz.
Yeah, it's Wentz.
Wentz has been chopped around so much. It feels like over the past couple of years. I can't remember. So.
Matt Ryan to Indy, like all these guys, you're like, what are we doing here? It's gonna be different this year. But
yeah,
I think the other thing was the Jets. Even though I like the corner that they drafted, I personally thought they could have used one of those tackles. Just in my opinion, personally, They needed a lot of things, so I guess it's not like terrible, but I would have just drafted a tackle at that 4 spot, but they obviously like the kid Gardner and stuff like that. So that's fine. Like both New York teams, I like the Wilson pick for sure. I like that kid. So, I mean, Jets, not bad. I just would have preferred a lineman there. They need help on that offensive line. They got the Becton kid. He didn't play that. I think he was like injured for a lot of the year. Even if he was playing, he was playing through injuries. I'm pretty sure they need help on that line.
Yeah. I wish the Jets would have been the team to trade down, and just go back and grab a couple more picks and then get a receiver later. I think that would have been the move, but
they could have too. They easily could have traded into this mid round and still got one of those receivers, but
that
Wilson kid though, he's still to me, I don't blame him for taking him there at 10. I
get it. I mean, they're between the 4 of them. I think they're all good options. Actually 5 of them, I should say. So there's a lot of good ones there. I like Burks. I think Bruce talked me into Burks a little bit. I like guys that have big size for sure. And he's got that size, but so does Drake London. He's one that I like a lot too. So, but yeah, it should be interesting to see how the year plays out. Trying to see if there's anything else. I know the Cowboys, they did a lineman, right? So it seems like Jerry didn't screw that up too much. You can never complain about a lineman pick. At least that's my opinion. It's hard to get too mad about that.
And when we got Nate in the chat, he says the Jets won the first round. I mean, the Jets drafted 3 starters. So yeah, they won the first round. They had 3 first-round picks. They stole that kid Johnson at the end of the draft. I'm not saying the Jets had a bad draft. They had the best draft. I agree with you. 100% agree with you. I just would have preferred them to take a lineman in that 4 spot, or like Mangone said, maybe trade down and get a couple picks. But I just thought a lineman would have been just a slightly more of a need, just for Zach Wilson, trying to keep him upright, protect him a little bit more. That's just personally how I saw it. But yeah, no, they definitely had probably the best draft, just because they got 3 starters, like you said. No doubt in my mind, it's a good call. I think the Giants had a really good draft too. I like the Evan Neal kid. I liked the edge guy they got. So I mean, Kayvon. I think the New York teams definitely had good drafts.
Yeah, another thing too with the Jets, JC, we don't know. These guys haven't played yet on the field, but who won the Adams trade? Did the Jets or the Seahawks, right? Because I think those were the picks from the Adams trade, or some of them at least. So we haven't seen them on the field, but I feel like my lean would be I like what the Jets won in that trade. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, especially with how it seems like Jamal Adams has kind of fallen off the last year and a half or so. When he came there, he was just an absolute stud, or viewed that way. And it didn't look like it last year. He struggled a good bit. So yeah, I would say right now that you might have to lean the Jets here in that, but we'll see. You got to still see the guy on the field, right? At least Jamal Adams, he's on the field. We're not saying he's an absolute scrub, right? Where he's still a solid player. He just, in coverage, he really struggled last year. It looked like there was a massive drop.
Yeah. But Kay Fallick is in the chat. He said the Cowboys drafted a guy that doesn't know how to not get penpenalties. So who knows?
That was definitely a bad pick. They must think they can coach him up or something like that.
I guess. I mean, here's the thing. It's a lineman. I'm never going to say a lineman's a terrible pick. It's just those are always staples as long as they're good. So think it'll be fine. We're waiting for Big T. I don't know if we just need to dive in or if he's going to be coming, but we can obviously.
I'll send him a text, but we can kind of dive into the game and then just because we're going to break down the whole showdown slate on here. So I'm sure he'll be here. I know he had an appointment, so I'll send him a text though. So
yeah. And We the People says in the chat, looks like I need a Red Bull to wake up. I already had a coffee with the people. They got a little bit of allergies, right? So it's, just a little slow today. I think they're bothering me. So, but definitely excited to talk about the showdown with you guys. Hopefully we can get Big T here soon. So JSU, I think you told me this morning, basically, we kind of switched it up. We're going to talk a lot of the draft here, but then we said, let's also talk some showdown. We're going to bring you on. We're going to bring Big T on and discuss it. And my first thought was, I was thinking through showdown and what will I do? Right. Just first look thoughts. I was sitting in line getting coffee. What would I do on this slate? my first look thoughts were, first of all, Cat's going to have some ownership. So I'm just happy because I feel like people are just dead playing him. Now, maybe that ends up being wrong, but I don't like Cat's odds based on whatever his ownership is going to be without looking at anything. Second, it's a winner or go home game, right? So because it's winner or go home for the Timberwolves, you're going to expect them to give it their all, right? You're going to expect a lot more minutes be unloaded too as well. And they're going to need a guy to step up. And who's the guy that steps up? That's my boy, Ant Edwards. I think Ant Edwards is like my guy tonight. I think he's going to be my highest exposed. And I think he's going to be my captain on this slate. So that's kind of my lean right now. Curious to get your take on that. And also, I saw you smiling there. So did Big T send you a text back right away?
Yes, he sent me a text back. He's coming back from his appointment, so he should be here soon. So no worries. Big T will be here to give you his showdown thoughts. And I mean, before we get into the showdown, Mangone, why don't we just, because we have some time and we're waiting for Big T anyways, why don't we recap the NBA games too? Because last night, I mean, we had some closeout games, and I definitely had some thoughts. First of all, like the Suns game, what'd you think of the Jay Crowder stuff? I loved how D Book like wore the shirt after in the press conference, and they were like asking, "Oh, what you got on?" Like he's like, "Yeah, my boy." Like that's when you know you made it, when the people are making shirts about you and stuff like that, which I tend to agree with Booker there. You know, you ain't if you're nothing, like if you're someone that no one cares about, they're not making shirts about you, Mangone. They're not telling you to fuck off, like with the shirt and stuff like that. Like Grayson Allen, they're not booing you every time you get on the floor. Like if you didn't make it, if you're not like an impact, those are type of things that like I kind of like. I like that type of stuff, and they use it as motivation too. I think Phoenix used it a little as motivation, and just how good was Chris Paul? Like he was so friggin' good. They played that drop damn. He just owned them, man. Going, do you see like his field goal attempts? They were just all like his spots. He picked his spots, and it felt like he was just shooting from the same two spots on the right and left side constantly, and just getting where he wanted to go. It was a masterclass from Chris Paul last night, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I was out, so I didn't get to watch all the games, but I haven't recorded. I might go back and watch some of it, but I was surprised to see Devin Booker played as much as he did. And like, I didn't even think he was going to play yesterday. That was like the shocking thing to me. So I was surprised about that. Chris Paul shot 14 for 14. I'm just noticing now that he made every shot, which that's pretty crazy too. That's impressive.
Mangone, it was like the easiest 14 for 14 though I've ever seen. And I want to make it sound like, yeah, he made tough shots. But like for him, though, those tough shots aren't really tough shots. Those are like money in the bank shots, most of those shots, right? They're like on that right and left wing side. He's coming off that dribble. He's kind of faking in and fading away to his left and right and just hitting these kind of like fade side jumpers that like no one can touch. And the defense, most of the time, those centers were just kind of stepping back. Every time there was a screen set, right, they're dropping down. So they're letting him get into that like mid-range area, that free throw line kind of area, and just letting him kind of stay in front of him. So they're not letting him get to the rim. But those are the shots he has mastered. And if you watch the 14 for 14, most of them are those. Like there was like 1-3 in there maybe, but like most of them was just all like mid-range and then little floater teardrops. Like he was just so good.
Yeah, JC, it's funny you say that. So I pulled up the stat sheet and I was looking at it, and then I noticed the ESPN like videos playing in the background. So as you were talking about all that, I'm watching Chris Paul just drain like the teardrop, right? I'm watching him do I looked at the plus minus. I see minus 16 for J-Val, and I said, oh, he probably cooked J-Val. Then I see him just hitting a nice little like a nice little two mid-range shot over J-Val. I mean, so I'm assuming they just attacked him in the pick and roll a bit. Probably Jackson Hayes too early on as well, because I see like the -8. I'm sure he got destroyed.
Yeah,
too as well.
I mean, Larry played a good bit. Jose Alvarado, that was one call I got right. Like he played a ton of minutes. I think he got like 30 minutes.
He got 31. He got 31,
yeah.
which I almost played a Nance and Alvarado team together, but I also didn't know if like both could coexist and play as much as they did. But 31 from Alvarado, I did not see coming.
Yeah, and I talked about it on the show yesterday. I like Nance too. I like both those guys. And I talked about it like just the fact that with Devin Booker back, and like if Herb plays more on Book, does that mean that they need Alvarado in there more to be on Chris Paul? Because Herb won't be able to play on Chris Paul as much. And I talked about how like there was a possibility that Alvarado caught a little bit extra run, and maybe there was some help with some fouls too, but still, I just said, like, I think he's got some upside from the minutes perspective. He didn't smash, but still, like 3,400, he gets you what, 23 and a half fantasy points or whatever. You'll take that, right? On a slate like we had yesterday. Like you'll take that fantasy points, and Larry Nance had a good one too. So yeah, those were things I was comfortable with.
Yeah, no, I like Nance. I like when we get these, and you'll see it in Showdown too. Like when you get to these points at this point of the year, when you have to play some really like cheap guys, you know, they're only going to play a couple minutes or even like 10. Like I want to take guys that are just elite fantasy producers, right? Like a Hassan Whiteside. He's really good when he's out there. He's really good at producing fantasy points. So that way, if I can find my way to limp myself there, they'll get me there at like that 1K tag. What happened to that Sixers Raptors game? So I watched the start of it, and like I saw the Raptors were winning, and I was like, here we go. Doc blowing the 3-1 lead. I'm all for it. It's going to be great. I don't know what happened there, I guess. I know Harden kicked it off well. Looks like Embiid turned it on too, because Embiid wasn't like the greatest to start out the game. And I was really thinking he's like pretty hurt, and I'm sure he still is. Like I'm a little worried about them against the Heat now. I know the Heat, though, they have Jimmy who's hurt, but Jimmy's fine. I'm sure he's going to play. Lowry, I don't know what his status will be. I'm sure he'll find his way back at some point in the series, though. But what did you think of the Raptors? Like, how did they like implode so bad when they were winning early on?
Yeah, so the Raptors, like they started off the game plan. OG got into foul trouble like right away. Definitely hurt him a little bit. Boucher was hot to start. He had a really good game, but in the end, I think it was more just to the point of Embiid and what he did for that team. And, you know, you look at what he did. He was very efficient, got to the free throw line. He was 9 for 10, like what was he like? Friggin' 18 field goal attempts, 12 of 18, like just very efficient. He was getting down inside a little bit more. I think he was a little more aggressive, which helped. Even James Harden.
He had five steals and blocks too, which you hadn't seen him as active defensively lately.
Well, that's the thing. And James Harden started off the game really good too, which gave them a boost. So I think all those things, like, and then Maxey was really good. That was the thing that was killing them the last two games, was like Maxey wasn't playing as good. And if you remember the first two games, Maxey was one of the guys that was like out of nowhere was just balling, right, Mangone? And everyone's like, oh, Maxey. And then can he keep it up? And then he kind of slowed down in the next two games. And you're like, okay, now he's coming back down to earth a little bit. He had another really good game. I thought he was kind of a key, but yeah, Toronto just couldn't keep up with the Philly when Embiid was kind of rolling. They struggled to score, especially towards the end, like the third and fourth quarters, they were really struggling to score. And that's where Philly just kind of went on a roll and just pounced on them. And that was it. So yeah, that was the one game I think out of the three. I had three bets yesterday, and that was the one game I got wrong, was the Toronto Philly game. But 2-1. Damn it, I wanted to go 3-0. I think Big T and Spread were on the other side of I can't remember. Oh, Big T and Tyler. I can't remember. It was Big T and Tyler were on the Philly side, and yeah, that was a 1-1 I got wrong. I wanted to see the Doc Rivers collapse so bad too. I wanted to see him in the press conference, like make excuses, but damn it, we won't see it.
By the way, we the people said Iverson called out Harden. He responded. Now, this is my issue with that statement. When Iverson calls you out, you go out there, JSU, and you probably drop like 35 or 40 on the other team's head. The dude shot 7 for 12. Like, yeah, you shot great, but only 12 shots. Like when Iverson calls you out, you probably go out there and like ball out. Like he just did his job. You know what I mean? Like he did what he's supposed to do.
He did have 15 assists though, Mangone. Let's not.
He played well, but like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like if Iverson calls you out, it's like, just go out and be there and be the alpha.
But it helps when, Danny Green gives you 12. Tobias Harris gets you 19. Maxey gets 25. You know what I mean? It definitely, Embiid gets 33. It helps when all your starters are playing well, right? Because when those guys are bad, it's like, okay, Harden feels like it's way more pressure on him to score and stuff like that. But the fact that like Harden needs to have more games where he's getting double-digit assists. I think that's where Harden's at his best. I still think he's lost a step, but I think that's where he can still be effective is he can still pass. He's still got some good vision. I always thought he was a good playmaker, especially for others. We just never saw it as much because I don't think he trusted a lot of those guys in Houston as much. And he's got a lot more like just singular talent, like Tobias Harris, Maxey, and Embiid. He's going to be able to pass these guys and get them looks. Like I think they all think Maxey's a stud, and could end up being like one of the better players for sure when it's all said and done that's on this team. But Harden has to have these bigger games. Iverson calls you out. I mean, I love Iverson. Like when Iverson calls you out, you gotta step up. I'm gonna say he stepped up. He didn't need the 30, 40 point game, but he got you. He was the general. He gave you a really good game, and he gave them the boost at the beginning of the game. He came out strong in the beginning.
Fair. When Iverson calls you out, I figure you go out and drop like 30 or 40. But I get the Embiid usage thing. We'll see how Harden ends up doing, though, because that next series is going to test him. I mean, Miami's defense will test Harden for sure. It's definitely not going to be easy.
No, Miami's defense, you will clearly see in that series that he's lost a step. If you still haven't seen it, you'll see it in that series because Miami's going to be all over Harden, like absolutely swarming him. So I can't wait for that series. That's going to be a good series right there with Miami's defense and seeing how they deal with Embiid because we saw it. Like they can stop one dude, right, Mangone? Like we saw it with Trey. Like they can slow one guy down. Can the others continue to play well? Can Maxey continue to play well against the Heat? Can Tobias Harris continue to have consistently solid games? You know what I mean? Like in this series, he wasn't amazing, but I think he was pretty solid for almost every game they played. So can those things happen against the Heat? We'll see. That's going to be the biggest test for them for sure.
Yeah, no, you are definitely right about that. Where is Big T? Big T, I see him tweeting on Twitter and stuff. I mean,
He's coming. I'm telling you.
He might be hustling us. That's all I'm going to say. I'm excited.
No, I guarantee it. He's coming here. I guarantee it.
All right. Well, there's one more game we can talk about. Obviously, the Mavs and the Jazz. And here's the unfortunate part about last night, JSU. We lost games, right? Like I wanted some like game sevens. I wanted to be able to like have more 2-game slates and less showdown slates. I definitely prefer the bigger slates than the showdown ones. But Luka, Donovan Mitchell, he rose up to the Big T fake injury. He showed up that he's a man and tried to get the job done. Good game, 23, 8, and 9. I didn't see how it ended. So I think overall, Luka being back is great, right? I mean, it's good. Nice to see him healthy because I think it was a little uncertain, especially if they get out of that round too as well. So I think that it should be fun to see the Mavs in the next series. They're going to be playing the Suns. That's going to obviously be a tough one, but hey, we get to see Luka go up against the Suns. Should be a fun time. What did you think of the game last night? Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, I believe that might be their last game they play together as well, because it seems like Donnie Mitchell might be going somewhere else. So what was your overall takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with thank God that the Jazz are just out of our lives. I never liked the Jazz. They just never, like, you just know that team is not built to like, and they're all older. Like, oh God, it just was never meant to be. Thank God they're done. And we're through with them. And this Dallas team, man, they got some good players here, outside of Luka. Like this team I think is like, they could definitely give teams like a tough time just the way they play. The problem's going to be like, can obviously they need Luka to stay healthy for sure, but also can Jalen Brunson and Dinwiddie, they need like one of those guys to give them big games for like this next series that comes up. No doubt in my mind. So that's going to be the key with them. Can Brunson, Dinwiddie continue to play really well? If one of them can, at least, I think they have at least a puncher's chance. You know what I mean? They probably still don't win, but I think they at least, give a good series. So that's going to be the key. But yeah, I'm so sick of watching the Jazz. Like they're the team I just can't stand watching. Guys like Rudy Gobert, overrated. Everyone's, he's the best defender in the league. Oh, best defender in the league. Are you kidding me? Watch that series. Like in the playoffs, everything shows. Like that's when everything is heightened. Like that's when you start to see the real players, the fakes like Pat Beverly and stuff like that. Like you start to see those guys as what they actually are. And, Utah, just Donnie Mitchell, they don't want to play together. So that team needs to break up, Mangone. Whoever needs to go, one of those guys needs to go though, right? Like,
well, it's gonna be Donnie, and then like they're stuck with Gobert, and then they'll eventually figure out what to do with Gobert. I think it's what's gonna happen.
So my issue with Gobert is like those type of centers in the NBA, they're just not on winning teams. Those type of guys, right, Mangone? Like you're seeing it. Like you need guys like centers that are athletic enough to switch and be able to at least play on the perimeter a little bit. You know what I mean? As well as rim protected. You need those guys. You can't have slow-footed centers in the NBA anymore because it's so much more about matchups and teams just find the weakness. That's what Dallas does really well too. They find the weak spot of a team and they just will go and go and go and go at that person until they either take them off the floor or until the game's over. Like Dallas does that really well, I think, especially Luka. And a lot of teams were doing it. You watch the Celtics, right when Blake Griffin got in the game, they started attacking him like he was just like he was injured. You know what I mean? Like there was a clear, weakness on that defense. Every team does this in the playoffs, and you start to see it. Rudy, you're not going to win with a guy like Rudy. You're not going to win with him being your second best player. Not even your third best player, probably. That's the funny part. Like, I think he gets exposed as the playoffs go on. One or two of these teams will expose a guy like Rudy. And Dallas did, because they had shooters and he just couldn't get out there and cover them. And some of the reasons why they lost some of those games were specifically because guys were having big games because they were wide open for threes.
Oh yeah, 100% agree with you on that. By the way, so this is K Falik. This is your fault. The show's derailed. Okay. You said, how dare James Harden only get 15 assists and plus 38? Damn shame. Here's the thing, K Falik. I know Allen Iverson well. Allen Iverson didn't want him to do that. You know what Allen Iverson wanted? I looked up the quote. I don't see James Harden being as aggressive as he should be. I want to see him more aggressive. He wants to see him be aggressive, K Falik, but James tries to play the game the right way, tries to get everyone involved, which yes, that's what Harden's good at. He is good at dishing it out, drive to the hoop. I agree. He goes, I think we need one of those vintage James Harden games he's won multiple scoring titles with. We need him to be extremely aggressive and not worry about getting everyone involved, but still playing the game the right way. That's all I'm saying, K Falik. He didn't do what Iverson wanted. I know he didn't.
Who's talking right now, though? We're talking about Allen Iverson. I mean, Allen Iverson wants to see a vintage Allen Iverson game. You know what I mean? Where it's just, give me the ball and get out of my way. That's what I was getting at, JSU. I'm not even saying he played bad, but I'm saying I know what AI wanted. I know what that man wanted. I watched him all the time. JSU, I had to pick between two players when I was a kid. He should have been saying, I want to see a vintage Joel Embiid down in that paint, bullying people and just dunking on them. That's what he should have been saying. The James Harden vintage games, those days might be done, Mangone. I don't know if we're going to see the vintage James Harden games. That's all I'm going to say on.
I'm scared we might not see it either. I miss seeing it. And the reason why I say it, JC, is I picked between two players when I was a kid, right? I picked all my favorite teams based on players. I had two to pick from. I went with either Paul Pierce or I went with Allen Iverson. And it was a tough choice. I wanted to go AI, but I went with Paul Pierce. It was a tough call.
So you went with the truth instead of the answer?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, that's never the right way. You always go with the answer. You always want the answer to the equation. That my guy Allen Iverson, everyone knows this. I can't even he's just like, he was my idol growing up, like as a basketball player, like just basketball. He was the guy who I wanted to be exactly like. I wanted to just mirror my game off of him. He was so friggin' good, fearless, just never got any calls, never complained either, always got hammered. Like the refs hated him. He just didn't care. He would still drop 30 on dudes. Like He was so good. I loved Allen Iverson. And those teams were trash too, by the way. Like that team he took to the finals, that team was complete trash, Mangone. And he took them to the finals.
I think that was maybe the Eric, was it Eric Snow he was playing with? I forget.
Oh yeah. Aaron McKee, Eric Snow. It was such a bad team. Eric Snow and Aaron McKee. God.
Yeah. See, JSU, I had tough choices when I picked between the truth and the answer, because the truth was playing. He was playing with Tony Battie and Antoine Walker. I mean, not the greatest cast of characters either. So both those teams had some.
So Ja's the new AI. The people says the problem with that is AI was so polished on the perimeter as a like a mid-range scorer. Like it was just. In his footwork, like as a mid-range, it was just so good, even as a small dude. Ja, obviously, though, like the athleticism is ridiculous. And AI was super athletic. I'm not trying to say anything.
Ja's more like what's it called? Ja's more like either Westbrook or even like John Wall, right? I think those comps are better.
I think Ja could be like a little like AI if he develops and polishes up a mid-range. I mean, Ja is super young. We're talking like he could develop a mid-range jump like game. You know what I mean? Like he could absolutely develop that in the next year or two and get really good at it. How many players have we seen, like really good players who have massive athleticism, and over time, it takes time. We can't always be KD and just like, have all that stuff like after a year or two right off the bag. We're like Giannis, who takes like 5 years, 6 years, but like develops and develops and develops. Ja might take 4 or 5 years, but eventually he can develop that type of jumper. We see it in guys all the time where they develop certain things and they stretch themselves out over time. So he could end up being like an AI type of player, but I agree with you right now. It's like a super athletic Westbrook with maybe a little better jump shot, but not as like it's closer.
Yeah, by the way, JC, here's two guys I know who have a job in Dallas for life. Dorian Finney-Smith and like Reggie Bullock, right? Like those dudes can play next to Luka however long Luka wants, basically. If Luka wants them on that team and like the money's right, they'll be there. Like, because those dudes will definitely just be locking up for him. And I don't know if you heard, Reggie Bullock was playing through a sickness last night too. So he had his own Jordan flu type game. So I thought that was interesting when I read
those are like those players though, that like LeBron types, Luka types, they need those type of guys. Those are like glue guys that, just they're going to night in, night out, do their job for the most part. They're not going to do too much either. They're not going to take away from you, right, Mangone? Like they're not going to steal Luka's thunder. Luka's going to get them wide open jumpers. They know it. And that's why they don't worry about it. They just let the game kind of come to them. And those are the guys that Luka, LeBron types need on their teams. And that's why I knew like the Westbrook thing would never work. LeBron, literally, I swear, like LeBron could have used DFS and Reggie Bullock and made them look really good on that team. Like those are the type of glue guys that players like that need. Guys that just know where to be, don't take away from them, know that the game's coming to them, know they're going to get open shots off all the action of the star having the ball and initiating the offense. And that's what they do really well. They know how to find their spot and they just wait for it.
No, you're 100% right. Those are the guys I strive to be, JSU. When I play pickup hoops, I want to be like Reggie Bullock. I don't want to be the star. I just want to make sure I do my job. I make my couple shots here and there.
See, I think you're more like DFS, just gritty, grind it out. Yeah. Reggie Bullock's more of like a dead eye type guy. You know what I mean? Yeah, what he's doing, right, Mangone? Like, make Reggie Bullock dribble forward. If you make Reggie Bullock dribble forward, he's going to be a little more confused because he just wants to shoot, right? Yeah. He wants to catch and shoot. He wants to catch one dribble and shoot. That's why with shooters, like, I never understand it. Like, run them off the line. I said it with Steph Curry, like when you defend Steph Curry, all he wants to do is catch and shoot or catch in one dribble and step back and shoot. If you close off that step back and force him to go forward, he doesn't know what to do because like all the time he wants to step backwards. So like you're going to catch those guys that all just want to shoot threes. And that's how you got to defend those type of guys. You can't let them shoot threes, make them shoot uncomfortable shots.
100%. I am wondering, Jesse, you told me this man's coming. I feel like we're getting ghosted from our boy Big T. What's going on here?
I'm going to tell him right now. I said, I put the guarantee on it. So if you don't show up, you're going to make me look bad. I'll tell him that right now. If he doesn't, if you don't show up, you're going to make me look bad. Don't make me look bad. All right.
My feelings won't be hurt, but the people watching might be, which I haven't said, guys, subscribe to the video. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate it. While we're sitting here waiting for Big T, let me go through the schedule for the day. Let's see what we got on tap. It seems like a quieter day. I made the schedule last night and I was like, okay, we don't have as much probably going on. Got the MMA show at 2 p.m. with Titletown, DC. Keg breaking that all down. You want to always check that out. Saturday, there's a card. So they'll be talking about that. 4:45, the MLB Swing for the Fences show. You don't want to miss out on that. We got DC, JT, and Hoop. They'll be breaking all that down. And then, of course, PGA Showdown round 3. You got Robin, Uncle T. They'll be with Snyder. They'll be breaking down the round 3 PGA Showdown. So they'll be doing all that. And then, of course, we'll have the NBA stuff. JC, while I have you here, how about you run through what the NBA schedule is going to be like over the next week or so with kind of some of the shows and everything?
Yeah. So we're going to continue with the Up to Lock show probably next week. Like the 2-game slates. Once it gets to like the 1-gamers every day, that's when we'll transition to more like recorded videos earlier in the day with me and Big T. And then we'll transition to the double MLB shows. So if you're a subscriber, you're waiting for the MLB Up to Lock shows, those will start probably in a week or two. So give that, another week or two, and then we should be there with the double NBA MLB shows. But for now, we're going to keep the premium show Up to Lock NBA for at least the next week or so and go from there. But yeah, I want to respond to whether the Storm says Rudy wasn't the problem in the series. I disagree. I agree that Conley was bad, but Conley's I call it the ghost of Mike Conley because he was not good all year. We knew it. Like he's just old. Like he's hit a point where he's just older. That whole team has kind of hit that point in a way. Besides like Donnie, in my opinion, a little bit. They've all kind of lost a little bit. Even Bog, who had some good games, but like he can't keep that up for that long. Like can't expect that. So I think the issue was if you watch some of those games, I'm telling you right now, how many 3-pointers did he just leave wide open for some of these guys? He couldn't get out to contest them. That's his fault. That's him. That's him saying, I'm not going to put in the effort. I'm going to let those guys shoot open. You can't just let professional NBA players shoot wide open shots. And then you can't get cooked by Jalen Brunson. Like you can't let Jalen Brunson cook you. You absolutely cannot. I totally disagree. They exposed Rudy for sure. And in different ways too. It wasn't just in one way. It was in different ways. And I agree with K Falk. Actually, Joe Ingles was a big loss to this team just from, I think, the veteran standpoint, a guy that they trusted with the ball. Like he was probably a loss that, because if Mike Conley's not playing good, you can bring him in and he gives you some good minutes. Like, I think he was someone who him going down definitely hurt the team. They all loved him too. He was someone that I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys really liked and enjoyed playing with because he was so unselfish. Like he was one of those guys that you could tell people like to play with because he wasn't like a ball hog. He knew how to play with everyone. He got everyone the ball in the right spots. He was just a good veteran. You know what I mean? Nothing special, but just a solid veteran. Every team needs one of those veteran glue guys. And I think he was that guy for that team.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm looking to see, do we know who the ref is tonight? Is it somehow Scott Foster? Are we going to get an extended series so we can get one game 7 JSU? Is that happening?
I don't know. Is Scott Foster the ref? I don't know. We could dive into this game now. Hopefully we get the T monster to show up here in a minute, but we can dive in and talk about it. I don't know the ref though. Maybe someone in the chat knows.
You got from guarantee to hopefully. So that's very upsetting. I'm hoping.
Well, he's making me worry right now. I mean, he's making me worry. He sent me the text. He said he was on his way, and So when someone says they're on their way, you gotta give them the old, hey, I believe you, but I don't know. He's gonna make me look bad. Friggin' Tony's gonna make me look bad. I mean, it's very
K-Falik
hurtful.
is asking if he needs this sub in for Tony. I don't know if is the water
K-Falik.
filtration business not booming right now. Is K-Falik just going to pop in
No,
here?
see, this is the difference with K-Falik, Mangone. K-Falik's a boss. He makes his own hours. Like, he tells other people when he's working. That's how you do it right there. I got to be like, that's how K-Falik does it. K-Falik, Big T, these guys are bosses. They just tell people they're going to be here, but like, who knows? They just do what they want. They can change it up like that. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe Tony just changed his mind right after he texted me, Mangone, said, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to make it, whatever. K-Falik's the same way. He tells people when the meetings are happening. He tells people when to show up for the phone calls. That's a boss.
Well, I mean, K-Falik, listen, if you always have an open invite if you'd like, but we are obviously hopeful that we can get Big T here.
Tony, you're getting me in trouble now. The fiance just messaged in the chat saying, tell Big T you got a lunch date. This is true. I got a lunch date, Big T. Don't mess that up.
What time is the lunch date for? This is getting tough.
It's 1:00, so it's okay. I said 1 was the time. So we got time, Mangone. There's still plenty of time. So
what's on tap for the lunch date? Where are we going? We can stall a little bit longer for Big T. What's on the schedule? Not pizza for JSU. I had pizza last night. And it was delicious.
I don't know. So I think we're gonna go to a nice spot called the Tavern in the Square, about 10 minutes away. But yeah, nice little spot. Get me some lunch. She finished up her finals today so she's got like a couple of weeks of break from PA school. So big day for her. And yeah, get a little time to spend on a lunch date. We don't really get a ton of lunch dates. You know what I mean? I don't get to go to lunch that much, Mangone. I'm not like Big T. I don't got a lunch crew. I don't get to go to lunch every day.
You're not the boss, man. Make your own schedule. Do lunch whenever you'd like. Yeah.
I get told what to do. I get told by Big T what to do. I got to listen to him tell me what to do constantly. I can't be like K-Falik and Big T. One day though, Mangone, one day we'll be like K-Falik and Big T telling people what to do.
And by the way, like Kelly wants some vodka-ritas. Like I might make a trip out to Boston to go hang out with Kelly and get some vodka-ritas. That sounds like a good night to me. I mean,
she can, this is what happens though, when we go out for like lunch, she'll drink, she'll have a vodka-rita or whatever the heck she's talking about over there. And I'll get my water and be good. Oh, look, Kevin's here. At least someone wants to join us. I mean, shit. Now we can break down this slate. We got a third person.
Kevin, how's
What's
it
up,
going?
Kevin?
Once we started talking about vodka-ritas and lunch, congratulations to Kelly though on wrapping up that semester. Was it semester or school in general now?
Yeah, so it was her first like finals part. Yeah. So she's still got a whole like other two, but yeah.
Y'all should just come back down and eat a lovely pharmacy burger, possibly.
That burger was good. I wouldn't mind a good pharmacy burger right now. That's a place we need down here. We need something like that down here.
Kelly destroyed those drinks too. Loved her drinks, and everybody was happy.
Oh yeah, she. One thing about Kelly, she can eat and she'll take down a drink, but once we get past one drink, K-Falik, that's it. She's done. Once she gets through the second one, it's over. She's drunk. You know what I mean? Which is fine. You got to know your limits. So
as long as Johnny AirPods doesn't drink too, then we're really in trouble.
Oh, that was Johnny AirPods on that Friday night.
I can't drink either. I can't drink either. Like once I start drinking though, that's it. Especially like hard stuff. Like beer is one thing. When the hard stuff flows out, that's why it's occasional. Right? It's like once a year. You know what I mean? You got to know when to break that stuff out. So, all right, let's get into the showdown slate. Screw Big T. He's pissed me off. Kelly's going to be mad at him for ruining our lunch date. Like that's it. So let's talk showdown.
All right, we can talk showdown. Let me pull it up. I already started by saying, I think I know the guy I want at the top. I think it's going to be Captain Ant Edwards is going to be reporting for duty for me tonight, I think. So that's the guy, but I haven't ran everything right. Just kind of first look, thinking it through. Looking at the salaries, Ja, 17.7 is the captain price. So he's the most expensive, followed by Cap and Edwards. Sorry about that.
Bless you, Travis.
Couldn't stop the sneeze in time or get the mute off. Allergies are bugging me, but Bane, Russell, Clark, K-Falic, let's go to you first because I think Edwards is my guy tonight. Who do you like at the top? Like, who are some of the guys that you are looking at for the captain slot?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one today. You got some really, once you get down to this spot in the playoffs, you're dealing with a lot of short rotations and stuff like that. So it's hard to make the builds really work the way you want it to. And like you start looking at, okay, how I look at slates is who's the value that I can play today. And then you look at, okay, how chalky is this value going to be? So you got Taurean Prince, who's going to be like the uber chalk of all chalk tonight, who is 1,400 on DraftKings. And he's going to make everything else work for people. And the question is do you really want to play Taurean Prince in this spot? Did he get additional run for certain reasons? And you start looking at that, and I'm not sure I want to go that route. And the guy that I'm looking at is one of the bigs for Memphis, is going to get more run tonight. And it's just guessing which one it is. And they're just going to keep on doing their thing between Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. And that allows me to get the guys that I want. Ja Morant played 45 minutes last game. Desmond Bane played 45 minutes last game. And then you got these Minnesota guys that only played 38 or 37 minutes. JSU, do you think they increased their minutes to 40, 42 minutes this game? Like they haven't done it all series.
I think they have to. Closeout game. I think that's another thing too we have to look at is like, this is a closeout game for them. How can you not play Ant Edwards 42 minutes in a closeout type game here? As long as there's no foul trouble, obviously. How can you not let Cat run 42 minutes here? And so I think that will depend on some of these other minutes for some of these like secondary guys like Taurean Prince. I mean, if they do that, K-Falic, does Taurean Prince go from 17 minutes to like 8? Like, this is a possible scenario,
so, yeah,
right?
The answer is that Taurean Prince got extended minutes because Anthony Edwards got in foul trouble in the fourth quarter, and they had to sit him. They were playing, like the plan was for Anthony Edwards, from what I can see, was for Anthony Edwards to play the entire fourth quarter last game, and he got into foul trouble. Or it would have been whatever adjustment it would have been. He got into foul trouble in that third and fourth quarter. He got 2 fouls not quickly, but he got 2 fouls in a few minutes in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, he got an additional foul, and Edwards got, I don't want to say bench, but he got put on the bench because he had 5 fouls. Like they couldn't keep him on the court for that in that fourth quarter run, which directly impacted Taurean Prince, in my opinion. Like you could say it impacted Jared Vanderbilt, but in my opinion, it was Taurean Prince.
Yeah, so a lot of people in the chat are talking about Jaren Jackson Jr. is being glossed over and guys getting in foul trouble. It's like, well, that's what Jaren Jackson Jr. does. Like, is it going to change this series? Like, the dude gets in foul trouble every game. Like, I don't see myself rostering K-Back. I know you talked about it a little bit. The dude just always gets in foul trouble. Why is it going to change this game?
But I think that that's what everybody else is thinking. And if it doesn't, then he's going to play 30 plus minutes. And that's the GPP mind in me, is that if I'm going to get him at sub 20% ownership, because everybody's picturing him to do that, and Brandon Clark's going to
The problem is everyone going to think that way? Or is everyone thinking like he's a starter and he's in the mid tier, you know, where like,
I think my big debate is K-Falic. It's not about Jaren Jackson Jr. is a good play or bad play, or he's a good matchup. It's what is his ownership and what is the ownership? Like, I think you should make a decision before lock. You should say, if Jaren Jackson Jr. is, let's say your number is 10%. If he's 10%, then I think he's a really good GBB play. And then when ownership comes out, if it's over the number that you think, then you should be saying to yourself, I made a bad decision. If it's under the number, then you say, I made a good decision based on it. I think that's the way to approach it. I think you're saying that same thing, K-Falic, but that's something I just want to like mention to the chat. Like, this is a guy that, yes, I understand he can be a good play, but it's based on ownership. It's not just, hey, he's going to just do well here. We don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is based on the ownership, he could be worth it because he's a good fantasy point per minute producer. Does that make sense, Falic?
Yeah, no, I think that you're right. And like, again, I think that you're seeing guys like right now, the guys that are cheap that are popping off are Taurean Prince, like Xavier Tillman, a little bit of Jordan Clarkson, and I just don't trust those guys. I don't trust the run that, like, Xavier Tillman at least is starting right now, so there is that piece. But I still don't know if he's gonna, like, if Jaren Jackson Jr. stays out of foul trouble. The perfect lineup for the Grizzlies to run is Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark, Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, and Ja Morant. Like, if they were in a perfect world and they could keep both of these guys out of foul trouble, all five of these guys out of foul trouble, I guess those are the five that they want to run with. And that's the, like, I think they want to finish the series tonight. I don't think they want to go back to Memphis. They're gonna play the guys if they can, and they've shown that they will.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this stuff that we're talking about too, it's very dictated off of how the first quarter goes with foul trouble. We've seen it in multiple games here where, I mean, what was it? Was it game 4 or game 5 when, like, the entire first quarter, like after the first quarter, the entire starting lineup for Memphis had 2 or more fouls like that. And then we saw last game, Pat Bev's minutes were affected because he was in foul trouble. Like, and so a guy like Jordan McLaughlin plays 17 minutes. And, like, if Pat Bev gets in foul trouble again, he might be a guy who gets 17 minutes again. So he might be a guy who plays more, and Taurean Prince plays less if Anthony Edwards doesn't get into foul trouble. My point is that it's kind of all going to depend. So if one dude is going to be chalky, if you're right, and Taurean Prince is going to be really chalky as a value play, I just think he's a terrible value play because you need things to go your way for him to even get, in my opinion, the minutes you're going to want for him to just absolutely smash and be on the winner. And that's the key with a guy like Taurean Prince. And like we said, in a closeout game, they're going to want to push these starters big minutes. No doubt in my mind, they want these guys on the floor. And even Vanderbilt, like, he's the only one who, like, maybe like some games, if he's playing well, he'll get the run, but some games he won't. He's the only guy who, out of the 5 starters, I think they don't mind not finishing with all the time.
Yeah,
but the other 4, they want in the game.
JC, they're not going to finish with them because they're going to go to McDaniels, because this lineup with Vanderbilt, it's not working. Like, I'm so sick of seeing it. McDaniels is the better option to go to right now. It just makes way more sense. I think the other thing I want to call out too is, like, if you are playing these slates, especially when you get down to, like, the game 7s and game 6s where the rotations tighten, if you're going to play a Ja Morant in your captain slot, you might have to take, like, a guy that's just, like, going to get you maybe like 2-3 minutes. So you have to be ready to do that, where maybe going like Patrick Beverley as your captain in the mid tier to be able to have a more balanced build is better. Now, if you're playing Ja Morant in the captain slot, there's a good chance a lot of teams are going to have him in the util. Maybe fading a Ja Morant completely could be, like, a huge way to just, like, all you have to do is just get off of him, and that'll make you unique. That's one way to be very unique. Or if you put Ja Morant in the captain slot and you're, like, hell-bent on playing him, he's the best play you feel like on the slate, maybe you just put him in the utility slot and then take one of those other guys you have in the utility and put them in captain, and then upgrade one of those really cheap guys. Like, let's say you have Taurean Prince in there. Upgrade him and see what it does for your lineup. That's very important when you get later in these games, to see what these 2v2s and 3v3s are and see what the difference can be. I think that's very important. Alec, what's some of your thoughts on some of the stuff I just said?
I disagree with you on Jared Vanderbilt, that I think that, like, it's all dictated by the foul trouble. And that's what has been this series, is the foul trouble and the impact of those players have impacted the game. Like, if they go with if Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the court, then it is a good spot for Jared Vanderbilt, in my opinion. Like, I think that's where it is if Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the court, Jared Vanderbilt is on the court, in my opinion. Because
the problem is Jaren Jackson hasn't been on the court much this
I know.
Series.
No, I get it. I get it. In that change, when he's not on the court, it changes because Tillman can't play more than 5-minute spurts and stuff like that.
So Alec, are you making a rule? Are you making it like, if I play Jaren Jackson, then I'm playing Jared Vanderbilt?
Yes, that is my intention, is that if that I will be playing those guys together and running them out together, because I think that if Jaren Jackson Jr. stays out of foul trouble, then he's going to get the run. The difference is if Jared Vanderbilt gets in foul trouble, it's not like Jaren Jackson Jr. is going off the court. He'll stay on the court no matter what. So there is that factor with it. But yes, I would run them out together because I don't even care. I think Jared Vanderbilt's the best value on this slate at 4.6K compared to these other guys that are down low that are completely dependent on foul trouble by other guys, including Jaden McDaniels. Like Jaden McDaniels needs things to work out for him as well to be on the court. And you can see it. It's like completely connected. So yes, the answer is that Jared Vanderbilt, Jaren Jackson Jr. Jared Vanderbilt is impacted by Jaren Jackson Jr. The one guy that I'd fade personally, like I heard you on John Morant, I disagree there as well. My fade would be Desmond Bane. I know that it's not like the same price or even close to the same price, but Desmond Bane is a shooting dependent player. And his points come from, and those are the guys that we've talked about all playoffs that we don't like playing, is those guys that are point dependent. Like last game he got, let's see, I had it up here and I'm trying to like not have to turn every time and look at stuff. Desmond Bane had the last 3 games, he's had 25, 34, and 26 points, 42, 47, 45. But like in fantasy points, but he had 5 stocks last game. Like he had 5 blocks and steals last game to get to that point. He had 4 rebounds, 2 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 assists, and 2 assists. Those are the guys I'm not going to play. Like I'm just going to take my chance that he is going to get 25 points and not get the 5 stocks and get 1 or 2 stocks. And he won't be in the winner compared to the other guys on the slate.
So I got a counter though. Isn't Anthony Edwards the same type of guy?
Absolutely. But the difference with Anthony Edwards is the difference with Anthony Edwards is that he's going that they're like, he can also do other stuff. Yes, at times. But if you think that Anthony Edwards is going to see the ball in his hand all game, the
0 assists, 4 assists, 2 assists, 1 assist, 6 assists. That's his series number. I'm just saying, I'm trying to put up counterpoints here. Desmond Bane's outscored him in at least 2 of his last 3, maybe all 3 of the last games. He's outscored him fantasy wise. I don't know. Is Ant Edwards going to be super popular tonight? Like I like Ant Edwards, but I'm just saying let's just say, for instance, like in the captain, right? Who's going to get more ownership? Anthony Edwards or Desmond Bane?
Currently I'm seeing Bane for sure.
I'm seeing Bane as well.
Now here's big foul. So here's my
That's
point.
actually shocking.
It's probably just what the numbers are saying right now. Obviously,
I'm
early
stunned by that. People like Minnesota. People want. I think Anthony Edwards at the end of the day is going to have more ownership in the captain. Personally,
I don't know yet. It depends on what some projection sites do because some people follow other ones closer than others. So it just depends. Phallic. So this is the point I want to make with John Morant. It could be Big T out there, right? The point I'm getting at is he's one of the highest owned guys in the slate. So a lot of the times my way in these showdown slates to try and find ways to get different, it's either making a different lineup construction or it's finding a guy to fade that's very high owned that I think is a bad play, or I think maybe is not worth the salary and it's an expensive salary where I can go to other routes. So at the end of the day, I'm looking more at the fades rather than the plays. Like I'm not going to be the guy that's thinking and being like, oh, this is going to be the Nas Reed game at 2%. Like, that's just not what I'm doing in Showdown. I'm not looking, oh, Tyus Jones, like he could be the guy that gets extra run. I'm actually looking at who's the guy that I can fade that's very high owned on the slate, that if I just get off of an 80% guy, then I'm just different right there. And it's like very simple approach where if that one play doesn't pan out, all those lineups sync, and then I'm at the top of the leaderboard with a chance to have a pretty unique lineup, if that makes sense. So it could be Ja. I'm seeing Cat as the highest owned guy in the slate right now. It's like, I'm very happy to fade Cat in this spot. I don't think Cat's a good play. So
I mean, I would fade Cat over Ja for sure.
Or two.
Like if I had to pick one of those guys to fade, I would definitely fade Cat over Ja.
So do the selling point on that. Is it because of they're like the team that's gonna in like the win or go home spot? Like, is that the reasoning? What's the reason for that? Because you can definitely say Ja has been better than Cat in this series, or more consistent for sure.
Yeah, I think more consistent. I think Cat, even though he's had 2 like solid fantasy bounce back games here, we've also seen the downside of Cat in this series, right? So we've seen the downside of him in this series We've seen that Memphis at times can really frustrate him and get to him. So look at these turnovers too, 3, 5, 4, 6, 7 in this series. Like, listen, that is frustration, right? When you have that many turnovers, like the defense is definitely getting to you a little bit. Even when you're scoring 33 and 28, I'm still saying you get 6 and 7 turnovers. That's still saying like he doesn't know what to do too when they double him in the post. Like that's another issue. Like he's terrible off the double team. He can't do it. Like he struggles with it so much. He'd be so like he needs to watch Jokic and how he just dominates the double. He needs to watch some of these guys that just absolutely own double teams that like teams can't even double them. And then he's going to have so much more success when he gets better passing out of that double team. Because once he gets better at that, then teams are going to just say, we can't double this guy. And then he's going to be able to drop 40, like whenever he wants, because teams aren't going to be able to. But until he figures out how to pass out of a double team and get other dudes involved, he's not going to get it consistently, and he's going to keep struggling with it. So, because teams know it, they figured it out. Small ball and force him to pass when he's in the post-up game, because he's got moves in the post-up. So don't let him score there. Make him be on the perimeter. Make him beat you that way. If he drops 40 on you that way, you live with it. It's like Embiid. We don't want Embiid dominating us down low. We want him out in the perimeter. We want him to dominate us by banging a bunch of threes. And if he beats you, you live with that. That's how you got to play these type of guys. So for me at the top here, like I just feel like Ja has a higher upside as well. So that's the other thing. He's been more consistent and he's been bad. Like that's the other thing about Ja that I think is funny about this from a fantasy standpoint. Like I don't even think he's played well, like in this series at all. And he's played like he's still dropping 50, 50, 53, 46 was, I think, his worst game in the series fantasy wise. And then he had the 65 game, but like he is still consistently getting there. And I don't think he's put together like a couple amazing games in this series. I think he's had like 1 or 2 solid games in this series, but like in my opinion, there's still room for him to be better. And that's the thing that's scary with Ja. The upside is clearly just a little higher than everyone else. But like guys like Dylan Brooks, they have no upside. I mean, Dylan Brooks, no upside at 7K. I don't like him. Brandon Clark finally flashed some upside last game. I feel like I'm chasing a little, but he's like, he to me is like more consistent, right? He's a consistent guy. They want him out there on the floor. So I like him. D'Angelo Russell's been terrible in the series. Does he continue to be terrible? Because he's getting the minutes, 39, 35, 39 minutes the last 3 games. Is he going to finally have a good game in this series? Like I think
but look at the usage drop, JSU. That's the thing I'm noticing.
Well, because Cat's usage went skyrocket the last 2 too, right? So that's definitely but he's still just been bad in the series overall, K-Fallic, right? Like we have to acknowledge, like he hasn't been good. So Cat should be shooting more. Like he should be, up in that usage for sure. So he's a guy I probably won't play. Like I think Bane's a better play than Russell for sure. I think if I have to make stands like Dylan Brooks, Russell, Jaren Jackson, all guys I don't like in that type of like upper tier range. And then Cat, if I got to take a stand on a stud, it'd be Cat. Like I probably won't be as high on Cat as I am on Ja. Like I'm going to see what it kind of gives me, but I definitely think Ja's the best play. The question is going to be these mid-range guys, because you're going to have to play somebody. Like, I know I'm not going to play Kyle Anderson. I like Jared Vanderbilt seems like probably one of the safer plays, but does Tyus Jones get more run if they go small, right? Like if I don't think you should play Jaren Jackson and Tyus Jones together. I think like for Tyus to get his upside in minutes, one of those bigs has to be in foul trouble to the point where Tyus gets 20 or 22 minutes because they go small for a little longer. They play that Tyus lineup for a little longer in this game, because you would expect Ja to sit for what, K-Fallic, 4 minutes tonight?
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's I hear what you're saying in regards to Tyus Jones, but Tyus Jones has now become the backup 1, 2, and 3 on this team. So like is what I'm seeing is he's back. D'Anthony Melton is not in the rotation anymore. So he's now officially out of the rotation. So I think that he has become the backup 1, 2, and 3, except for if Kyle Anderson, if they choose Kyle Anderson to play the 3, which I think that they prefer him at the 4 when Jaden McDaniels is in. So I'm the question is how many minutes does Dylan Brooks play more than it's how many. So like if any of those 3 get into foul trouble, it seems like Tyus Jones is the guy that
he's another guy that can't keep his hands to himself sometimes. He's so aggressive at certain points. He just gets in trouble sometimes. I mean, if he's not in foul trouble though, you have to. I really think that this has to be Memphis has to play all these guys like 40 minutes.
I think that you're looking at
in foul trouble.
In a perfect world for Memphis this game, you're going to see a 7-man rotation. As crazy as that sounds, they're going to have a 7-man rotation.
Brandon Clark, Tyus Jones, Kyle Anderson.
Oh, Kyle Anderson, 8. You're right, 8. Sorry. But 8. Yeah, it's going to be an 8-man rotation, but Tyus Jones is going to back up the 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to have 2 of Dylan Brooks and Ja Morant and Desmond Bane on the court at all times.
So we got a question in the chat saying Dylan, maybe Slow-Mo gets more run with Zaire out. And so this is where, like, I don't know, just because if we think the starters get more run, right, that might just be where those minutes go, right? Like if Dylan Brooks goes from 35 to 40, right? And, who else are we talking about? Brandon Clark goes to 40, right? Yeah, some of these minutes Tyus Jones could pick up those minutes too. That's another guy. If they go small, those could be where Tyus gets some of his minutes because they've clearly booted D'Anthony Melton out of the rotation. Tillman's going to play like probably 10, maybe 15 minutes, but like maybe, I don't know. Like that's the question to me. Like Tillman could lose some run too if they really shorten the rotation hard and there's no fouls.
You can see it from last game, honestly, to be very honest. The only issue is you can't see the rotation for Jaren Jackson Jr. because he got in foul trouble all game. But like you can see the rotation that they're trying to run out there. Zaire only played 4 minutes. John Conchar played 3 minutes. I don't think you see Conchar hit the court this game. I can't remember why he got his run. Like he may have taken the minute. I don't remember, to be honest, but he played Zaire played 4 minutes last game. So I think you just remove those 4 minutes and give them to, like, in theory, to Jaren Jackson Jr. or something like that and just move on with your life.
Zaire played for Desmond Bane when Jaren Jackson was out. John Conchar played. He came in at the start of the second. So yeah, I mean,
he took Kyle Anderson. I looked
at a lot of those minutes last game. You could easily shave off those like 3 or 4 minutes a time.
Correct.
It's not hard.
It's not an issue.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can look at like the rotations are going to be the only question is how deep does Minnesota go, and what do those minutes look like? Like again, that's the only thing that I'm like. I feel very confident in Memphis's rotation is that they're going to play those 5 guys: Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr. If Jaren Jackson Jr. stays out of foul trouble, he's playing 30 plus minutes tonight, and like we know his efficiency on a point per minute period. We know that Jaren Jackson Jr. has the ability to go nuts in that time, and he could take over even more minutes if he's playing well.
Okay, Alec, the key is, so this is, if you want to like really get a good read on if they go the tight rotation, what they'll probably do. It looks like that second half is a good read on it. So they went Bane, Brooks, Tillman, Ja, and Jackson to start. Clark replaced Jackson he replaced him at the 7:31 mark and played the entire fourth. And then Tyus Jones, the interesting one, he came in at the 3:31 mark. Then he played until 9:37 of the fourth. And then he closed the game out from 6:58 till 8 seconds left. So
because Jaren Jackson Jr. fouled out, and so they didn't go.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, Jaren Jackson. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, he fouled out at the 6:58. So that's why he came in there. You're correct.
They didn't want to bring Tillman in, so they chose to go with
Tyus Jones too. Like he's like a kind of a big time player a little bit to me. Like he is pretty confident and he can play on ball and off ball. So he gives Ja like a little bit of a break if he needs to take the ball for a possession. for sure. And he can knock down a shot here and there. Like Tyus Jones is a guy, like, it wouldn't shock me if they leaned on him a little bit more. Like, he's been in the league a little bit now. He's gotten plenty of time playing. He's had those spot starts where like Ja is out and he's got to start and he plays really well. Like, it wouldn't shock me if someone got in foul trouble and he's the guy they leaned on, even over like a Kyle Anderson at the end of the game. So don't be shocked if they go that 2-guard lineup.
I don't think they want to play Ja Morant and Desmond Bane 24 minutes of the second half, though. Like, that was, I think
they will, though, if they have to.
If they have to, they will, of course. Yeah, they will.
Well, likely what they'll do, Falik, is they'll slide over some of those Tyus minutes, like for Jared, like the Jaren Jackson slides into the Tyus minutes, then Tyus slides in to give them a breather here or there.
Correct.
The question with this game is going to be, does Minnesota come out and play strong in the beginning? Because that's going to force Memphis to feel like they got to play those guys in the second half more, right? The theme of this series is, Memphis shouldn't be up 3-2, right? That's the theme of the whole series. Everyone's been saying it. Like, it's ridiculous that Minnesota lost some of these games. Well, some of the game flows of these games has kind of forced some of these minutes from Memphis. And you saw that with some of these games. So that's the question to me. What if Memphis gets up, 15 in the first half, right? And Minnesota feels like their backs are against the wall, then do their minutes for sure get in the 40s, and maybe Desmond Bane only plays 38 instead of 44, right? Those are the questions. I don't know. All I know is what I've been watching, which is Minnesota usually starts off pretty well. Memphis starts off slow a lot. So you can read into that how you will, but this series, that's been kind of a theme, right? Like, outside of maybe 1 or 2 games, like, that's the way this series has felt like to me. Well, Minnesota starts off strong. Memphis kind of gets it going towards the end and picks up some steam. And that's where Minnesota tightens up and falls apart, because that's what's happened. Minnesota's been the better team for more of the length of the series, but Memphis, when the game towards the end gets tight, Memphis is the team that's played best at the end. So if the series goes that way, I expect all those starters, mainly outside of Jaren Jackson, because I just don't think he can not get in foul trouble, to play 40 minutes. If he doesn't get in foul trouble, though, he will play, 35 or 40 minutes probably. So that's the way I think the series goes. I don't know why we would think any differently, right? Like, Memphis has started slow. Like, that's the way they've started.
Yeah, my only issue is I don't know how Jaren Jackson Jr. stays out of foul trouble, because he just always does it. We'll see.
So the question with the builds for Showdown is going to be like, do you take 2 or 3 guys at the top, like 3 guys at the top, and then build like a mid-tier approach type build? Or do you take 2 cheapies or 1 or 2 cheapies at the bottom and play all these studs? And then you can play like Ja Morant in the captain, or if you like Cat, you can play those studs in the captain. Or do you play like the secondary guys, like the Bane, Edwards type captain plays, and go and have more of a balance? Maybe you can get like a Brandon Clark instead of a Kyle Anderson. Like, those are the type of decisions I think people are going to have to make in this Showdown slate. And like, for me personally, this is early. I could change my mind. Obviously, I'll update everything in the Discord if I change my mind. But like, for me, I'm looking at it going like, okay, if I spend up, I'm going to spend up for Ja. If I go in the mid tier, I think I might play Desmond Bane or Anthony Edwards. Like, I think those are the 2 clear guys in the mid tier. At least they've got upside at their price tags. Could Anthony Edwards end the game as the highest scorer? Yes, he could. Could Desmond Bane do it? I think he could too. He's also got a little more downside because of what Kay Falik said about his shooting. Could he have a bad shooting game? Absolutely. So could Ant. So that's where like the downside comes in. If you play a Ja, it's much safer, right? But then your builds are going to be, I think, a lot like everyone else. You're going to spend down for one Torian Prince or one of those cheapies to kind of make everything work. And I don't like it as much because I think a lot needs to happen for those builds to get there. And if you do that, I would do it with someone else, someone who's not going to be popular. I talked about McLaughlin. Maybe he gets the extra run. Who knows? Maybe Cat gets in foul trouble. You fade Cat, so play Naz Reid. Like, that's how I would build. I wouldn't play Naz and Cat together. I would play one. I like if you build a game script and you're like Cat gets in foul trouble, maybe Nas picks up some run. Maybe Vanderbilt has more opportunity on the boards, right? Some of those things. So that's the way I'd be looking at building the showdown. You got to build your lineup out like how you think the game script goes. Do you think it's a blowout? Maybe you build a ton of Memphis guys if you think they blow Minnesota out. Maybe you think Minnesota blows them out and you build a team with a bunch of Minnesota guys and you take some bench guys from Memphis to finish out your team. That's the way you got to construct these showdown lineups.
Well, I think the key too is like when you build it out and like JSU, if let's say you start with Ja, the captain, when he said, then just go to Ant and just see what the upgrade is. I think that's like super important to do that sometimes people just don't go and look at, that I think is super valuable to see what works. Because I want to do this like Ant and mid-tier-ish route as the captain. So far, I'm not like loving what I'm seeing. Now, I'm not running it with like a ton of projections and stuff. I'm just kind of hand building it out. But K-Falcon, what are you seeing as like the better approach? Are you seeing jamming in the top stud or like trying to find more of like a mid-tier balanced guy to put in there? Like maybe it's Patrick Beverly. That's one guy I looked at in the captain that like maybe that could be the route that unlocks a lot of this, where you don't have to play some of these other guys that could be a problem.
Yeah, so I the way I work through showdowns is I'm categorizing people into tiers just like JSU is, but I think my tiers are a little different. So I look at the top tier as being Ant Edwards and above. So those three guys, which I think we agree on. And then we have the mid tier is anybody below Ant Edwards, so Desmond Bane down to Jared Vanderbilt is the way I'm looking at it. And then the low tier, the cheap tier is Malik Beasley and below. And I personally am trying to avoid that low tier unless I'm scripting a specific route. And the way I play 2 or 3 lineups and showdowns is I will plan on not playing any of those guys below 4K today, because I think that they could get no run potentially, except for Xavier, like not no run, but like, do I want a guy getting 15 minutes of run when I can see a guy who's $600 more that could get 30 minutes of run, or $800 more, even going from Taurean Prince to Jared Vanderbilt? Again, like I think Jared Vanderbilt's going to be my make or break on this slate, but 32 minutes or $3,200 for what could be a difference between 10 minutes and 28 to 30 minutes is a big difference for me to be able to be willing to go with guys like D'Angelo Russell and stuff like that. So what I'll be doing is probably playing one of those mid-tier guys in the captain spot. Don't know who it is yet. Haven't really run the numbers and really changed up the numbers. And I think that is, like, y'all know that I'm a hand building guy as well as JSU, but numbers are very important in my opinion for showdowns, because you're limited on the number of people. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the minutes for all these cheapies. They're over projected in my opinion, and I'm going to up the projections for the guys that are going to get the most usage. And I'm going to play, okay, what is the Jaren Jackson Jr. middling ground? I'm not going to say he's going to get 30 minutes, but I'm also not going to say he's going to get 14 or 16 minutes and get in foul trouble all game. I'm going to put him at 24, 26 minutes and see what he does and see how that run goes. But my hope is to play that mid tier and upper tier only and not touch the low tier, because you need fouls to happen. And I don't like playing for fouls to happen. That's not my style. I don't play for blowouts or fouls. I play for, these are the guys that are going to be on the court, and I'm going to trust those guys.
Yeah. JC, what are some of your thoughts on that? Cause I'm messing with it too. And I'm looking at it like, it's definitely not easy in order to avoid anything like below like the Vanderbilt and like the Tyus Jones is like, you are going to have to get really cheap. Like a Beverly is one that I put in there that like, it does work when I kind of do that. And it's not something I'm saying I love, but it's just not that easy. Like you can't get away with like doing Ant and then just kind of like really filling out that mid tier. Like I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with K-Falic about this cheap range. Like, unless you're scripting out something specific, like I was talking about earlier with like you fade Cat in a build and you want to play Nas Reed because you're looking for some foul trouble or something like that. Unless you're scripting out something specific, I don't really feel like some of these cheap guys are going to get a ton of runs. So I'm going to probably limit the amount of cheap guys I have in my player pool at all. I'm definitely going to fade like anyone who's going to be chalk, who's like super cheap. Like if Taurean Prince is actually going to be chalk at the end of the night, I'll probably end up fading him, because I just see it where you need a lot of things to happen to get the minutes you want. And even if he gets the minutes you want, that don't mean like necessary complete success anyways. So like, cause we're still talking very few minutes, like 15 minutes is still not that many minutes. Like 15 minutes don't guarantees he crushes and is on the winner anyways. So there's multiple routes to where he doesn't get there. And if we see everyone playing extended minutes, which if you're Minnesota, how are you not playing your guys as many minutes? You lose and you're done. Like your season's over. Whoever you want on the floor, as long as there's not foul trouble, is going to play. So I agree. I'm going to fade a lot of those cheap dudes. And then I'll let you talk, Alec, but I just want to hit on FanDuel because I'm noticing something that's a little different on FanDuel from a building perspective.
Yeah. So the two things that I'll just say real quick is the reason why the cheap end is tough to play today is because Minnesota has direct correlations for almost every position except for the like shooting guard and small forward positions. So like the center, when Cat is out, Naz Reid is in. When Jared Vanderbilt is out, Jaden McDaniels is in. When Patrick Beverly is out, like Jordan McLaughlin is in at this point. Like that's what makes it difficult. And then they have Malik Beasley and Taurean Prince, who are the 2 and 3 that can interchange potentially depending on the situation. But that's what makes Minnesota difficult is I still think that they still play with like the direct backup when you don't have guys that can play 2 or 3 positions. Like that's why I like personally Tyus Jones more than I like any of the backups for Minnesota is because Tyus Jones at this point, we have seen that he is going to be the backup 1, 2, and 3 at this point in this series. So like the backups in the rotation, as shocking as it sounds, because Memphis, we always used to bitch about their rotations are much tighter, and Minnesota's have direct backups that for each position, which makes it hard. Was what I wanted to throw out. The second piece I want to throw out is remember that the only team that is going to pull their guys early is Memphis is going to give up early in this game. So like, don't play the Minnesota gets blown out and what happens situation, because they're not going to get, like, these guys aren't going to get additional run. If Minnesota gets blown out, they'll play 2 or 3 minutes maybe when they just give up at some point. But like, if they're down 20 in the fourth quarter, doesn't mean at the 5-minute mark they're going to just give up. It's just not going to happen. So you're going to see these guys going until 3 minutes left or 2 minutes left, and they're still down 20. The guys are going to be like, we're sick of playing. Let's get off the court. They're lollygagging across the court and just dribbling past people, and coach is finally like, okay, it's time to end this game. So the only guys I would play down low are Memphis garbage players, and like, the question is, who are those guys? And they have a lot of injuries, and I'm gonna have to look into it further and figure out who those guys are. Let's be honest
though, the Grizzlies, they even when they're getting blown out, they're a team that like they just fight. They just constantly fight. So I don't even like the blowout side of that game, because they're fighters, man. They don't give up. So I don't like that route anyways, because I just feel like even if they're down big, they've found ways back in the games down big multiple times in the series. So I don't feel like they're a team that's going to give up as quickly in general as other teams would.
I don't like playing that route either. I'm just saying that people run, like Big T is going to say to run that route, and I know he's going to say it as well, is I'm not going to play Minnesota getting blown out and them giving up and playing a Minnesota cheapie to get like the garbage run. I'm not going to play the Nathan Knight. I don't even know who's on their team anymore, like Greg Monroe or whatever. Like, I don't think that I just want to make sure it is being said that there is no way that Minnesota is not going to play into the last 2 or 3 minutes unless Memphis gives up first.
Do you know why they're not getting blown out, Alec? Because the officials have showed up and Scott Foster is in the building. So he's going to try to extend
lock it in. The extender is going to ruin it for us in our 4-2 bet. That's fine. I'm not.
Well, afraid. There goes Jaren Jackson Jr. also. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So, okay, real quick, because we're going to get off this in a second, but I want to touch on FanDuel just because I pulled up and I started just quick building while you guys were talking a little bit on FanDuel. So my first just initial thoughts right here is that it's really easy to play Cat, Ja, and Anthony Edwards, because on FanDuel too, playing someone in the MVP spot, just for people who don't know or rarely play Showdown, it doesn't cost you. Like you can play anyone you want anywhere. It doesn't cost you extra salary, right? Cat's $15K, no matter if he's in the util, the star spot, the MVP spot. So that doesn't matter. And I'm just building it. And if you plug all three of those guys, Anthony Edwards, John Morant, and Cat, into the build, you still are left with 8,500 for your last two spots per position, right? So in my eyes, trying to be unique on FanDuel, one, you need to switch up the MVPs a little bit. You can't just play Cat and Ja in your MVP spot. Two, don't play all three of them in the same builds. Play two of them. Play two of those three guys, and then try and get one of these other guys and hope one of these other guys, whether it be a Desmond Bane, a D'Angelo Russell finally has a good game, a Jaren Jackson on FanDuel, who has a lot more stock upside, finally doesn't get in foul trouble and pops up. Find someone else who can somehow outscore one of these guys. I mean, we've even seen Cat have really bad games. The Cat had 26 fantasy points in game, I think it was game 3, 30 in game 2. I mean, if Cat has 30, somebody else random could outscore him. Brandon Clark outscored that last game. Like, Brandon Clark could outscore him. D'Angelo Russell. Like, if someone has Anthony Edwards, if Anthony Edwards has a bad game, who's picking him up? Is it just Cat? Is it someone else? Is Vanderbilt popping off for a big game, right? Is Jared Vanderbilt popping off and having a big game and dropping, a 38-point game, 36-point game, where maybe you want him in the pro spot or something weird like that. Maybe you play Vanderbilt and Jaren Jackson together, like K. Fallick said, and you fade one of those top two guys because, if Jaren's in, Vanderbilt probably plays more as well because they're kind of trying to play them in the same spot. Maybe that's the route you go. But I'm going to play FanDuel. I'm going to make a rule where these three guys are not going to be in the same builds. I'm going to play two of those three guys and then mix and match my other spots.
Alec, do you have any other rule discussions? Because I know some people were asking in the chat about that. What's some of your thoughts on some rules you're going to set up for this slate?
Yeah, so I said the situation, like Minnesota situation is with the backups. Let's just like the big ones is like Jared Vanderbilt needs to be connected to Jaren Jackson Jr. in my opinion. Like that's one of the big ones. And then the other ones are Minnesota related in my opinion. Like you can't play D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. You can't play Pat Beverly and Jordan McLaughlin. You can't play Cat and Naz Reid. You can't play Jared Vanderbilt and Jaden McDaniel. Like maybe you could because of their price tag, but like in my opinion, you can't play those two together. You can't play Taurean Prince and Anthony Edwards. Like those are the like rules that I'd set up on DraftKings. I completely agree with JSU on FanDuel. Looking at it as well, like these three guys are going to be 75% owned probably. And I think you'll
Easily.
see 50 to 60
massively owned.
Yeah, 50 to 60% of it will be complete triple correlation where all three of them are on a team together. So like the only difference you can do with that is just play the MVP or the star position differently. But like I could see those guys being in 50% of lineups as the MVP star and pro for 50% of the lineups at this point, looking at
I'm just saying too, if you play all three of those guys in those top three spots, those teams are going to be so duped. There's going to be so many of them. I think it's just bad for Showdown on FanDuel. Like, especially if your goal is you're playing like this $9 tournament and you're trying to ship that 100K up top. Like, that's just terrible to play all three of those guys and to run those teams because they're going to be massively duped, especially if you're someone playing one team. It's even
that's
worse.
the big. I was going to say that
one or three teams, even three teams. It's even worse for you because if you have 150 teams, now you can just say, listen, this is like my out. I still personally, if I played 150 in this $9, the way I play, I still wouldn't do this. But the way people think is I got my bases covered with like 35% of this 3-stud build. And then with like the best teams in their mind, the optimal teams that the opto's spitting out. And then they'll start mixing up, like K. Fallick said, they'll start mixing up the pro, the star, the MVP a little bit and do it that way. And then the other like 30%, maybe they'll play 2 of 3. But if you play 1 or 3 teams, it's worse for you because you're pretty much already going into it saying, if I win, I'm winning with like 300 different people. And that's the worst way to play 1 to 3 lineups. Play 1 to 3 lineups where you go into it going, well, shit, I'm taking a risk, but if my risk pays off, I'm going to win me 100K. I'm not going to tie with 150 people and win like 3K or something like that. Even if 3K is a lot for you, my point is that you don't want to go in building that way. It's just the wrong way to go into a tournament mindset wise.
Yep, agree with you guys on that. Do you have anything else you want to discuss or talk about here? Do you want to give any final thoughts? Like, Falik, what do you got?
No, I've set a meeting for all of my employees for the next 2 minutes. So I do have to run in a few minutes.
See that, people? He sets his time. This is how he does.
I'm kidding.
He's the boss.
No, I'm kidding.
That's my guy, Falik. He knows how to do it.
I do have to get back to work. I enjoy listening to y'all, but I did see that Tony decided not to show up. So I felt like I could at least offer a little insight with the two of you.
Thank you, K Falik, for coming through. Unlike Big T,
yes, thank you, Falik.
Had an appointment, but still told me he was going to be here and no showed. Thank you, K Falik, for stepping in and handling your business. Big T, I'm coming for you. You lied to me. I'm coming for you. That was hurtful. Sean even said it's not going to be the last time he ditches you on a show. I said, you know what, Sean, you're probably right. It's not the first time. It won't be the last time. Very hurtful.
Well, I'm hopeful we have a 2-game slate on Monday so I can host the Up to Lock show and make sure we announce the employee of the week. Or of the month. It's a very important thing to me and to the company. It keeps the morale really
I already
going.
know who it should be, so it better be who it should be. I'm not pointing at myself as a me.
I was about to say, are you pointing at yourself?
No. I already know who it should be. So if it's not who it should be, I'm going to be very upset.
I didn't know I needed to start taking
recommendations about myself.
I'm going to have to get JSU. I don't want to bother your fiance and make the date go short, but I do need to get that insight from JSU. I do always enjoy.
I could send you a DM. With my preference here, who I think, but yeah, that can happen.
All right. Falik, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. The allergies have been killing me, but we powered through. I couldn't just move the show to whatever time I wanted. Falik, I don't set the times like you do, but we will be back here next week, 11 a.m. for sure. Obviously, we'll be going to bring you all the content this weekend. Guys, if you could subscribe to this video, helps us out a ton. We'd appreciate it. Also want to say we got the MMA show coming up at 2:00 Eastern. So be sure to check that out. Don't want to miss out on those winners. Then you got the MLB Swing for the Fences show at 4:45. And then 6:00, 9 o'clock tonight, round 3 showdown. JSU, give your final thoughts before we get on out of here.
Yeah, final thoughts, man. I already gave the FanDuel thoughts. I think we hit it on the head there real quick with analysis. We'll have more too in the Discord. I'll be in there after my lunch date. I'll be fueled up and ready, and I'll be in the Discord for a lot of the day and can answer some Qs in there. And for DraftKings, like we said, like the values, man, if some of these values are going to be chalked, don't be afraid to fade them. They need a lot to kind of work out, in my opinion. So I don't love the values. And like K Falik said, know who your values are and who you need to fade, who they're kind of tied to. Because I think he broke it down perfectly in the video, exactly who is kind of tied to who and who's playing 3 different roles, who gets there with the foul trouble. So, obviously take that, remember it, maybe write it down, make a note of it. You can always go back, rewind the video, and hit the like button as you get out of here. Hit the like button, show Mangone, give Mangone some love here. He's been doing the show Monday through Friday. Give him some love. The Mangone and Friends show has been solid, and we're going to keep it rolling. So make sure you hit that like button on the way out.
Yep, let's keep things rolling. We'll have everything in the Discord, like JSU said. Well, the Showdown playbook, we'll have it all for you guys. Don't worry, Big T. He no-showed us here, but he doesn't no-show slates, right? He'll be hanging around. He'll be giving.
Oh no, he's playing the slates. Yeah, he'll be in the Discord. He'll have his player pool up. I know that for a fact. So.
I just gotta say it, JSU, because I see some people, and I don't know if they're just being clowns or trolling, but they're like, "Is Big T doing a quarter day?" Like. Oh, what do you think? Yes, of course he's doing a quarter day. He does it almost every single day. So
every
we'll
day.
be in there.
Yep.
Don't you worry. Breaking it all down. Thanks a lot for joining us here. For me, Mango and JSU and Falik, we'll see you guys later.